This morning, 48 hours from Super Tuesday, Texas Democrats have a lot on the line. The U.S. Senate race, Congress, and that state Senate seat in Dallas. Democratic strategist Jane Hamilton tells us what she will be watching for. How will Texas lawmakers react to that stunning decision from Alabama? Justices saying frozen embryos are children. State Senator Brian Hughes on that, plus the new way Texas will prevent people from voting twice. And he is just back from the U.S. Supreme Court arguing to keep one state law. Arlington scored big with 9 World Cup games, but the entertainment capital of Texas has some work to do first. Mayor Jim Ross on the transportation needs. And Senator John Cornyn running to become the next Republican leader in the U.S. Senate. We're going to look at what this race might hinge on.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Counting down to Super Tuesday, let's take a look at the top political headlines this Sunday morning here in Texas. New numbers show how much Governor Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton are spending to try and defeat fellow Republicans. On Tuesday, Abbott has spent so far more than $4.5 million trying to defeat Republicans who oppose school vouchers. Attorney General Ken Paxton going after another group of Republicans. These are the ones who voted to impeach him last year. Groups that are helping Paxton spend about $2.5 million. Both of these efforts, though, just indicative of how divided the Republican Party is right now. Will Senator John Cornyn become the next Republican leader in the U.S. Senate? Mitch McConnell announced he would step down from that position in November after 18 years in it. Cornyn was his number 2 for a while, and on Thursday, Cornyn announced he will run for that seat. Experts say this race might be more about relationships than who's most conservative. And the man in charge of the Texas electric grid says connecting to the national grid would be too costly for the state. We had Congressman Greg Casar on Inside Texas Politics a couple of weeks ago with this new bill. If passed, it would require Texas to connect to the national grid. But ERCOT CEO Pablo Vega said the money it would take to do that would likely be better spent investing in more transmission lines and other resources here in this state. Our first guest this morning is just back from the U.S. Supreme Court. He was there arguing to save one Texas law. This one prevents social media companies from kicking users off their platforms because of their political views. State Senator Brian Hughes represents Tyler to Texarkana and takes our questions on this case on in vitro fertilization and revealing new information this morning about how Texas will keep its voter rolls clean. Senator, welcome back to the program here. Justices seemed kind of skeptical during their questioning earlier in the week, suggesting editorial control is protected by the First Amendment, which tech companies are arguing there. How do you think Texas did in arguing its case?
Our Solicitor General, new to Texas, is a law professor, sharp guy, and you notice he had a different style. He knew his stuff, very well prepared, more conversational, less formal. I think the justices liked him. They didn't cut him off, let him make his case, and so we're optimistic where this case is going to go.
Well, social media companies, they argue that Texas, can't tell the New York Times what opinion pieces to publish. It can't tell Fox News, who to interview either. And the same is true with Facebook and these other companies. They can't be told what information to disseminate. What's your reaction to that argument?
Yeah, that's their story. They're trying to cloak themselves in the First Amendment when ironically they are the ones who are squelching First Amendment speech. Just like your cell phone provider can't cut you off because of your politics, the power company can't deny you service because of your religion. These guys are common carriers. They're the only game in town. That's the new public square. People are going to be discussing your stories, as you know, on social media. That's where people go to hash it out. And right now, we have a handful of big tech oligarchs that have a stranglehold on speech in America. And that's not right. So we're on the side of the First Amendment. I think we're going to win.
Do you think the justices bought that argument?
It was interesting. So it was sort of cut both ways, left and right. Some of the Republican appointees seemed to like the bill, some didn't. Some of the Democrats were on both sides. I think we're going to win, at least initially, on the point that they tried to block the whole law before there was even any kind of a trial. And so that means they've got to show the law is unconstitutional in every possible application. They're going to lose that. I think we win this round, the law goes back and takes effect, and we come back for some discovery. What the tech companies do not want is discovery. They don't want to have to open up and shine a light on what they've been doing. When people see that, I think we're going to win.
Let's talk about voter integrity for a moment here. You led the bill to replace the something called ERIC, the Electronic Registration Information Center. It keeps the voter rolls clean.
Yes.
Texas doesn't have anything right now. Does that concern you for the 2024 election, that the rolls might not be as clean? There might be duplicate voters in some counties?
Only in the last few years did we pass a law requiring Texas to be in an interstate cross-check system to see if folks are voting in New York and Texas at the same time. For example, at the time there were two. Texas joined one based in Kansas. That one went away, leaving ERIC as the only game in town. There have been concerns about security with ERIC, about some of the other requirements that ERIC puts on states. So the bill we passed says Texas must participate in a cross-check system and has to meet these criteria. ERIC can't meet those criteria, so Texas and other states are getting together to build their own system. So there's going to be a good solution.
Something is already in the works right now to replace ERIC. What's happening right now?
Yes, many states are forming memorandums of understanding in between the states. So your state X, I'm state Y, we're going to compare notes, see who's registered in both places. So a number of groups have popped up where states are getting together. It's federalism, so states are going to get together and they'll do their own comparison to see who's registered in both states.
When will that be in place, do you think?
Well, hopefully in time for this next election cycle.
For the 2026 or 2024?
Well, hopefully for 2026, obviously it's coming in, but even for 24, states have been talking about this, they've been comparing notes. There's a lot of data we can look at to see where people are registered to vote. So ERIC is not the only way to do it. It's one way, but it's not the only way.
But by November, do you think there might be some system in place to check?
I'm optimistic there will be.
And the Secretary of State's office is doing that.
They and many other states are working
on it. And the other
on
SOSs.
That's exactly right.
I want to ask you about the controversial decision from Alabama. The state Supreme Court there ruled that embryos are children. What's your reaction to that?
Texas law is very clear on this. You may recall I carried the heartbeat bill in 2021. The heartbeat bill specifically exempts in vitro fertilization. So I'm not sure about Alabama law, and I haven't read that case, but Texas law is clear. In vitro fertilization is not covered by the heartbeat law, by abortion statutes in Texas. That's important.
Any reconsideration of that now after this Alabama ruling?
You mean reconsideration to
about
include
IVF?
Embryos? Oh, I don't see Texas moving that direction at all. In vitro fertilization, obviously, it's a process for folks who are trying to have children, and it's a difficult process, and that is not what the aim of Texas pro-life laws are. No, I don't see us going that way at all.
Senator, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's bring in the roundtable now to talk about that. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Ian Mitra is with us from Austin at the Texas Tribune, and Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. But a lot of new revelations there from the senator from Mineola. Biggest takeaway?
Well, you know, he's trying to make the argument for the free speech law and say that it's just like it's a First Amendment case. It's like a utility company. You can kind of see through a lot of the things that he says. He's arguing his case it's a very popular argument, but I'm not really sure it's a constitutional argument. If you come over to my house and I don't like what you say, I can throw you out of my living room. Why can't I throw you off my service?
And Ian, the justices did show skepticism on this argument from the Solicitor General of Texas. Does that law survive?
You know, and a lot of the questions that the justices were asking about were related to scope, and it was some of the questions were difficult to answer for the Solicitor General. You know, which apps does this law apply to? Does it apply to WhatsApp? Does it apply beyond Facebook and X? And so there's still some confusion about like what the scope of the law is. That might actually feed into some of the decision making here on the court.
Bernadine?
Absolutely, and also it's actually refreshing to hear Republicans talk about freedom of speech, because once on down the line, let's hope they stand to that line that you should be able to say what you want to say on any format that you want to say it.
We shall see how that works with 2024 election going on, and see how that unfolds, especially with all the debates and arguments there. A lot more coming up. Here's a look. When we come back here, Democrats have some competitive campaigns in Texas Tuesday night. Strategist Jane Hamilton on what she's watching for when polls close. And 9 World Cup games coming to Arlington, but how will all the fans get around? Mayor Jim Ross on the public transit needs when Inside Texas Politics returns. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. For a few weeks now, we've looked at the red-hot Republican races on Super Tuesday. This morning, we're taking a closer look at the competitive campaigns between Democrats. Jane Hamilton is a Democratic strategist and tells us what she will be watching for come Tuesday night. Jane, welcome back to the program here. Let's start with the Democratic seat, the Democratic race for U.S. Senate. Is this going to go into a runoff, or can Colin Allred win it outright?
He is really done well when it comes to funding. and really getting the resources needed to be where he is, which is with strong messaging. And if you can, sort of imagine that most people would think that they would have heard more on the Democratic side than what we have thus far, I think that speaks to him really having a strong race and running ahead. Absolutely.
In Dallas County here, a lot of Democrats are running to replace Colin Allred over there. Who makes the runoff in that one? Dr. Brian Williams, Justin Moore, Julie Johnson, a number of them are kind of considered to be front runners here.
Yes, first of all, we have great candidates in that race, really strong candidates. And I think it speaks to the quality of the leadership that we have as Democrats here in Texas. But if we talk about what people are saying, we're really looking at Julie Johnson, who is, most people would say she's leading that field. And a close second maybe is Dr. Brian Williams. And so we're gonna be watching that on election night to see how that plays out. But right now it's expected to be a runoff. The numbers that we'll be looking at is, I'd say, if Julie's somewhere around 38 and Brian somewhere 32, then that's a play. If we are watching the numbers and Julie gets to the 40s, not so much. So the question seems to be really what happens throughout this early voting period and then well into election night.
What races are you watching for specifically on Tuesday night?
One of the races that we're watching really closely is the 108 seat. So that's House District 108. That's the Park Cities. And
in Dallas County.
Yes, correct. That's in Dallas County. And both sides of that race are interesting. So on the Republican side, obviously Morgan Meyer has a challenger, and that is a bit surprising that it seems like he is fighting for survival in that race. On the other side, on the Democratic side, we have Yasmin Simon and we have Liz Ginsburg. Liz Ginsburg ran before she ran last time, and she was not able to defeat Morgan Meyer. So most Democrats right now are looking at Yasmin Simon to take that and make it through the general because they do believe that Yasmin Simon has a better chance of knocking out Morgan Meyer, but we don't know what's going to happen in that race. So
another big Democratic race is in the Dallas County Sheriff's race. Marion Brown's the incumbent. Lupe Valdez was in there before her. Lupe's trying to get her old job back. Where does this one go?
She is trying to get her job back. I would say that Sheriff Brown holds this. From what I'm hearing, in terms of, even grassroots level, I think that Sheriff Brown holds this Dallas County Sheriff's seat.
All right, Jane, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Arlington scored big, winning 9 World Cup games in 2026, each of them as big as a Super Bowl. But how will tens of thousands of fans get around that city that doesn't have public transportation? Arlington Mayor Jim Ross went through the punch list of what will be required to make those games happen. Mayor, welcome back to the program here. Let's look ahead. 9 World Cup games. Congratulations on that. It's huge for Arlington and all the region as well. But talk to us about what kind of preparations you expect the city is going to have to make over the next year or so, and what kind of costs you think Arlington's going to incur for it.
We don't have all the numbers on what the cost is going to be yet. We certainly expect some help both from the federal and state governments when it comes to this type of stuff. We have a number of issues we're dealing with that includes public safety. First of all, we're going to have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people coming into Arlington to see these games. We want to make sure that everybody has a wonderful and safe time here in Arlington. That's first and foremost. The safety issues are going to be Arlington's priority. It is Arlington's responsibility, being that the stadium is here, and we're going to be taking lead on that.
What else do you think Arlington's going to have to do? I mean, you guys deal with big NFL games all the time. This is 9 of them, 9 Super Bowls, essentially. A lot of eyes will be on Arlington. Any other investments you think the city's going to have to make over the next year?
Yeah, we're going to do a lot of infrastructure and investment. We've already started to move monies around to help better some of the roadways that surround the entertainment district there. We have more and more hotel space. At the end of this year, we're going to have the Drury Hotel open as well here in Arlington. That's another 250 plus rooms in Arlington. So it's nonstop. This year alone, we're adding over 1,000 rooms to what's available here in Arlington. You also have transportation issues, and that's going to be critical as well. Every city in the Metroplex has systems that gets around the city pretty well. But every city struggles when it comes to regional transportation issues. We have 3 transit authorities in North Texas, and there are a number of non-subscribers like Arlington, Grand Prairie, and others that aren't a part of any of those transit authorities. But the problem is with those transit authorities, there's not a lot of cross-pollination that happens with those. We have a great rideshare program here in Arlington with VIA that moves people in a very cost-effective manner, much more efficiently in Arlington than a busing system would or something like that. But in reality, the more important issue is how are we getting people in and out of our city? So we are going to be having, we're working hand in hand with the Regional Transportation Commission, working hand in hand to have buses that run back and forth to Centerport so that we can get people on the T to get to and from the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Wow, incredible. Mayor, congratulations on the FIFA games. I know we'll be talking to you in the next year or so as this all starts to ramp up and spin up here.
Thank you. Take care now. Have a great time.
The roundtable is ready when we come back here. And a quick note about Yolitics as well. Tuesday night, after all the votes are tallied, we're going to have a brand new episode of our podcast. We're staying up late to look at the winners, the losers, what it suggests about November, and what it means for next year's legislative session. So check for that brand new episode of Yolitics Wednesday morning when you wake up.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
All right, time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Bud, Ian, and Bernadine are all back with us. And Bud, let's start with Senator John Cornyn running for the Republican leader of the U.S. Senate here. The best part of all this is the Twitter war that's going back and forth between Cornyn and the Attorney General, Ken Paxton here. It is tough.
You know, it's going to be all trash talk from now until the Senate Majority Leader's chosen. It's definitely going to be all trash talk between Cornyn and Paxton. Of course, we know that if Paxton is convicted or removed in state, he can still run for a federal office. So all the talk is about whether he'll challenge Senator Cornyn. You know, the Senate is concerned picking a majority leader. If the next, John Cornyn's not going to stay 17 years, but they want to pick somebody who will be around a little while. They don't want him to step down. You know, Paxton's trying to pretend that he poses a challenge to him. And Cornyn tweeted back at him and says, "You're not going to be able to run from prison."
Yeah, it was tough there. The language was, you know, Paxton, Ian was saying that Cornyn's not conservative enough to run for that seat. And as Bud just mentioned there, Cornyn shoots back, well, you can't run from prison. It's hard to run from prison, I think is what he said there, Ian.
Yeah, that's right. And also you have to remember that, you know, Ken Paxton has really positioned himself as like a top Trump supporter. You know, that's kind of the elephant in the room about this, is whether, Trump is going to weigh in on this race. You know, John Cornyn has obviously a very long career. He's very, has a lot of relationships in the Senate. He has that working for him. He's also been a very successful fundraiser. But ultimately, it really kind of depends on like how things shape up with the election in terms of like how things line up for Cornyn.
And there's months to go on this, Bernadine. Does Cornyn get this job? Well,
you know what? We'll see, because this job depends upon the relationships that he has built in the Senate. And then let's talk about Paxton. I'm going to weigh in on that just a little, because to me, Paxton is a ghost in this. How much of an influence will he have in choosing the Senate? Other than he might have former President Trump's ear. But other than that, I think that Cornyn is having fun. But let's get back to Cornyn. I think that he has a better chance. The question is going to be, will he be able to get some of those supporters who see themselves as magnas, the Make America Great Again? They may have more of an influence than you think. Yeah.
Bud, let's talk about the dueling visits to the border. President Biden was in Brownsville, and Eagle Pass hosted Donald Trump again here.
Yeah, everybody's had campaign events at the border. Joe Biden might as well come down and join in. It's like the border, I can't imagine what the hotel occupancy is from all these press events over and over.
They're doing very well.
They really don't accomplish anything. They put up a few pieces of barbed wire here or there, but they really don't stop the border, stop people from coming across. There's a natural ebb and flow of immigration, but they are really just putting on a show. Joe Biden gets to go down and rally some of the Democratic votes in the Valley, where his support's been fading. Democratic turnout is low in the primaries in the Valley, so he gets a little more done down there. But you know, in the end, I think the big winner out of it all might have been Greg Abbott. There was more talk about him.
And the talk, of course, Ian, was that, you know, President Trump, I believe, told an interviewer the other day that Greg Abbott is on his short list for vice president.
Yeah, he did that. He said that on Fox News with Greg Abbott sitting right next to him. And, you know, Abbott has been asked about this before and has said, you know, his focus is on Texas, particularly around issues regarding the border, and has kind of said that's where his focus is. But, you know, Trump is, you know, was had a lot of praise for Governor Abbott, and so that just made it even more interesting. One more thing just about these visits too. There were coordinated visits. There were no public events on this thing. So just to reiterate Bud's point, like, this was very much about playing to specific audiences and not necessarily about you know, the people or the communities that they were actually visiting.
And that's what a lot of them are, Bernadine.
Well, keep in mind, well, and I'll say to Governor Abbott, good luck, because what does he bring to the ticket? Number one, he's, anyway, I won't debate that. However, I will agree that these are just photo optics, that they're going down to drumming up support, the support that they already have, and it's not getting anything done. And I don't think during the election cycle they're going to get anything done.
Well, what he could bring to the ticket, if it happened that way, you know, there will be pressure on Trump to pick a conservative Christian, a Mike Pence kind of candidate. The evangelicals will want an evangelical. Greg Abbott's a very conservative Roman Catholic who will try to, you know, argue that he could be that candidate. It looks after last week, though, like maybe Dan Patrick's pastor down in Houston that calls immigrants garbage. Maybe he should be on the ticket.
We will pick this conversation up next
We
week, guys.
should do, because
Thanks so
he
much. I
doesn't
appreciate
bring
it.
any
We're back next Sunday.
independence.
Hope you can join us.
He
And
doesn't
take
bring
care.
any